Hey bookworms, welcome back to my channel. On April 28th, we celebrate the birthday of the late great Sir Terry Pratchett. He's mostly famous for writing the hilarious Discworld series, and to commemorate him on what should have been his 76th birthday, I decided to share with you my 10 favorite funniest books. So let's get into it. Also guys, in case the background looks a little weird or a little new, I have just moved into a different apartment and things aren't set up yet. So hopefully by the next couple of videos I'll figure out the background and lighting and everything. So let's go back to our list. These are obviously in no particular order, but let's start with one of the classics in this genre, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is actually a series of books. The first one and the entire series are called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and this is the epitome of dry, sarcastic British humor. Our protagonist is Arthur Dent, who has a bad day because his house is going to be demolished in order to make way for a highway. But that's only the beginning of his troubles, because apparently his best friend, Ford, who apparently is an alien, informs him that the entire planet is about to be destroyed very soon in order to make way for a galactic highway. Ford saves Arthur just on time, and with a fellow human called Trillian and Ford's cousin Zaphod, they go on adventures in space. Now this is the nutshell of nutshells of synopsis, but let's just say they meet crazy characters, have insane endeavors, and everything is just so insane and so funny. I will warn you though that not everyone can relate to this type of comedy, and this is absolutely fine. If you don't get along with nonsense comedy, if you tried to watch Monty Python and didn't like it, this might not be for you. But at least give the first book a chance. And dare I say, even the movie was fine. Yes, it is very different and has some bloody Americans in the cast, but the book itself had many versions, including the original radio skits, and every one of them is different. Also, Martin Freeman was born to play Arthur Dent. Next we'll go to another classic, this one just, classic literature, and this is Righto Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. This is a book in a series that you don't need to read in order. This one is simply one of those that I've read, and it's my personal favorite in the series. The entire series is based around Bertie Wooster, a rich, fancy person who really has no idea about anything, and his butler Jeeves, the real mastermind behind all the things that Wooster thinks he had done himself. Again, we deal with British comedy, but this is less of a crazy nonsense comedy and more of a comedy of errors. In this specific one, Bertie tries to play matchmaker to her friend, which creates much more trouble than solutions. So basically, take Jane Austen's Manners novel, add a dash of Agatha Christie's countryside manner and gossiping characters, and add pure comedy gold. And since I mentioned the movie version in the last entry, I will also add that the fantastic duo of Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie starred in the series version of the books in the 90s. Stephen Fry will feature heavily in this video, and he also narrated both the audiobook of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he was the narrator in the movie version. And there's more of him to come. But let's do some American comedy with one of the few non-British books on this list. This is Bad Move by Linwood Barclay. Now, if you know the author, you know that he writes thrillers. I recently reviewed No Time for Goodbye by him. But the guy also knows his comedy, albeit it's also a thriller, which is also cool. In this novel, we have timid, fearful author Zach Walker, who moves his entire family from the dangerous big city to a small, quiet town where crime is low and everything is peaceful. Or so he thought. Zach starts suspecting that this little suburb isn't as perfect as he thought, and when one day he finds a dead body, he realizes that he might have misjudged his move. Now he is again in a situation where he needs to protect his family, and in order to do so he befriends some criminals and realizes you really can't judge a book by its cover. Next we have A Spot of Bother by Mark Haddon, and can I just say, this was the only book by him that I remotely liked, and it is absolutely brilliant. In this one we have the whole family, parents George and Jean and their adult children Jamie and Katie, and they seem like a regular blue-collar English family. And then Katie announces that she's going to marry her boyfriend Ray. Congrats! Too bad that no one in her family likes Ray, and the happy couple starts fighting, and George sees a spot on his leg and decides that he has cancer, and Jean starts having an affair, and Jamie is dumped just as he summons the courage to tell his boyfriend he loves him. In short, as the family is preparing for the happy occasion, pretty much everything that can go wrong goes wrong, and each family member is dealing with their own private hell. This book is the epitome of dark comedy, which may not be for everyone. I love it, but you might not. You've heard the plotline. Are you okay with a comedy partially about a man who thinks he's going to die? If not, don't read this book. But if you like dark comedies, this one is one of my absolute favorites. It also kind of reminds me of the movie Death at a Funeral, the original English version, not the American horrible one. So if you like that movie, you'll surely like this book and vice versa. Next, let's talk about another classic, Three Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome. This hysterical comedy takes place in the late 19th century and is about three friends and a dog that decide to sail across the River Thames. What follows is a hilarious comedy of errors that will leave you in stitches. This book is a childhood favorite of mine. I remember getting it as a kid and it was so funny. And don't worry, even as an adult, the book does not lose its sense of humor. Before we go back to the theme of classics about sailing on a river, which is totally a theme, I promised you some more Stephen Fry, didn't I? Now, Fry's books aren't as hysterical as some of the other entries here, but I do love his sense of humor. It's more like casual funny, like spending the day with someone with a great sense of humor. So for this one, we have one of my favorite books of all time, and again, it deals with some very dark subject matter, maybe the darkest, the Holocaust. So if that's something that you can deal with, maybe skip this one. But this is Making History, about a young man who goes back in time to prevent Adolf Hitler from being born, only to realize that the present he created is a lot worse than the one he left behind. And now he has to go back and fix what he corrected. Again, this isn't a laugh out loud book, but does have some cute, funny moments. Also, it does not mock the memory of the Holocaust, nor does it discuss in depth the horrors of it. So if you're worried due to squeamishness, don't worry. But I absolutely love this book. It's both interesting and amusing. Okay, now let's go back to rivers and classics. The second American novel on this list is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This is about the titular young Huck Finn who hates the fact that his guardians are trying to domesticate his mischievous nature, so he decides to run away. He partners with a runaway slave called Jim, and the two take a raft and sail down the Mississippi River until they could find a place where both can be free. Now, what's so funny about slaves and orphans? Leave that to Mark Twain. I found the funniest moments in the book were the conversations between Huck and Jim, especially where both of them discuss things with a total lack of understanding of the subject matter, which create really amusing moments. Also, this is a good classic to start with if you're into that. I did an entire video about easy beginner-friendly classics, so make sure to check it out. By the way, if so far you like this video, don't forget to like this video and tell me which books you think are the funniest. Next, we have two foreign books. The first is 3 Things to a Desert Island by Yoav Avni. This is originally in Hebrew, but unlike the second one, you do not need to know Israeli culture in order to understand it. This is a modern fable of sorts about Odi, a sales rep from a high-tech company who flies to this tiny island near Thailand to sell a decision-making machine to its king. Odi can't wait to finish his trip and fly back home until he finds himself immersed in the island's culture, the beautiful princess, and an evil plot he feels he has to stop. This is such a cute book, and similarly to Making History, it's not a hysterical book or a nonsense comedy. It's just funny and cute and heartwarming. And I read it a million years ago when it just came out and absolutely loved it, and I hope you will too. And our next foreign book comes from Soviet Russia, and it's The 12 Chairs by Ilya Ilyiv and Yevgeny Petrov. I did a review on this book not too long ago where I said that some of the book's humor was lost on me due to cultural differences, but when it was funny, it was very funny. This book takes place in the early 20th century and has two protagonists, Ippolit Vorobyaninov, an office worker who lost his fortune in the revolution, and Ostap Bender, a charming con man with a head full of schemes. The two unlikely partners decide to team up to find Vorobyaninov's family jewels, which were hidden by his late mother-in-law in one of the 12 dining room chairs she owned, chairs that were taken by the communists and spread throughout Russia. The two embark on a journey to find those chairs, racing against a greedy priest who also wants to find those jewels, traveling all across the USSR and pretending to be different people and committing many different cons on their way to get rich. So I do have to say that much of the humor is very cultural specific, but even though I could have enjoyed the book much more had I known more about the Soviet Russia, I still think the book is absolutely hilarious and a brilliant satire that also laughs at some things that stay the same in every culture, like greed and bureaucracy. And lastly, did you think I'll forget the man for whom we are all gathered here to celebrate? The last book I will talk about is by the great Terry Pratchett, and it was difficult to find just one book to talk about. I did think about mentioning his wonderful collaboration with Neil Gaiman, Good Omens, but eventually I decided to go to my personal favorite from the Discworld series, Monstrous Regiment, although Hogfather and Soul Music were close seconds. In case you don't know the Discworld series, it's a vast series of books one can read at any order you want. The series takes place in the fantastic world that is shaped like a disc pretty much and have some similarities to our world, but isn't. You can't explain Discworld in one short sentence, but genre-wise it's obviously fantastic comedies with a bit of satire, a little less nonsensical than A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but rather strange. The different Discworld books have different themes, like some follow Rincewind, the wizard, some follow Mort, basically death, some follow the guard of the city, etc. And many of Discworld's fans have their own characters or arcs they like. But everybody loves Mort, who does not appear in Monstrous Regiment. In this book, we go to war, and we follow Polly, whose brother went MIA in said war, and in order to find him and save the family business, Polly pretends to be a man and, just like Mulan, joins the army. She joins a group of misfits that includes a vampire and troll and an Igor. I used to have a friend called Igor. And then both trouble and comedy ensues because it's a Terry Pratchett novel. One of the funniest things about this book has to do with its plot twist, so I won't tell you what it is, but I definitely recommend reading this one, and pretty much everything else by Pratchett. And if you do read something and don't like it, like I didn't like the first two books in the series, just find a different focused book. Maybe you like the witches more than you like the guard. Who knows? And those were my choices for my favorite funny books. And you don't have to tell me I have a weird sense of humor. I already know that. Thank you very much. But I do want to thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, don't forget to click on the like button, share this video to your funniest friends, and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos. Also, leave me a comment and tell me what are your favorite comedy books, and if you're a Discworld fan, what are the best ones in your opinion? Again, guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.